Hey, welcome back to the All Motorsports Podcast. I'm Jimmy, and today we're catching up on the latest drama from the world of Formula One. And trust me, there's plenty. Today we're doing a wrap-up of the 2025 Mexico City Grand Prix, the race that shook up the championship, served up surprises and gave us plenty to talk about heading into the home stretch. If you love the human drama behind the helmets, the strategies inside the pit wall and the storylines that keep motorsport unpredictable, you're in the right place. Don't forget, hit subscribe and stay tuned. There's plenty more coming. Let's dive in. There's no doubt the weekend belonged to Lando Norris. Although he didn't participate in FP1, he dominated every session and subsequently the race. Starting from pole position, he led from the first lap to the last and crossed the line well clear of the rest. That win gave him the championship lead for the first time since earlier in the season. He now sits 1 point ahead of teammate Oscar Piastri. In second place came Charles Leclerc for Ferrari. And third, of course, Max T-Rex Verstappen, who recovered from a difficult qualifying to salvage a podium. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri, who'd been leading the championship going into Mexico and only managed fifth behind rookie standout Ollie Bearman, who, by the way, delivered Haas's equal best finish in fourth position, which really is a big deal for both driver and the team. For the rest of the paddock, there wasn't much to chat about. Aston Martin didn't show much this weekend and Alonso eventually retired from the race, maybe due to boredom. Williams struggled again through the weekend, still not able to achieve any consistency, and I'm sure James Vowles will be coming out and saying that team's focus is on 2020. They aren't too concerned at this stage. Alpine showed very little fight. I feel sorry for Gasly, who, when in the right car, is a competitive driver, but for whatever reason the team is unable to give him what he needs. I'm not sure Max could get that car to perform. He's hoping 2026 brings some better news for Alpine, and I'm sure Gasly can't wait for this season to be completely over. Now to the championship picture, which is now sharper than ever. Norris has overtaken Piastri and now leads by a single point on 357. Piastri is right behind on 356, and T-Max hasn't dropped out of the window either with 321, gaining a further 5 points on Piastri, but dropping 10 points to Lando. It's fascinating because Piastri held the lead for 189 days, and yet here we are with Norris ahead by just 1 point. If Piastri doesn't rediscover his pace, the championship could be over before we get to Abu Dhabi. On the other hand, Norris is riding high on momentum. The car's working for him. He kept things clean in Mexico, and he grabbed the moment by the scruff of the neck. As for Max, there is still a mathematical chance he could win, but he has some work to do. And these next 4 races, 2 of which include sprint weekends, will be everything for him if he wants to close that gap down. Meanwhile, Piastri must defend more than attack right now, which poses some issues for McLaren, now that they have their preferred driver leading the championship. Okay, a quick shout out to Ollie Bearman. 4th place, a career best finish for the Brit in Haas machinery. When you consider the field, the competition, the pressure, this was a huge result for the young rookie. Throughout the race, he was under pressure from both Mercedes drivers and then Oscar Piastri in the closing stages of the race. He showed great maturity and driving skill to keep these cars behind him and, at stages, put in faster lap times. This drive is worth a mention, and I am sure the bigger teams took note. It is drives like this that can catapult a young driver into a seat at one of the top teams. If Haas is able to maintain this level of competitiveness in the remaining races, I'm sure Ollie will go close to his first podium, which would be awesome to see. Sometimes the driver of the day isn't the winner, it's the one who beats expectations. Bearman did exactly that, and in doing so sparkled in the Paddock's conversations for the rest of the weekend. Turning to Mercedes, they had a shot at the podium, or perhaps even better, but things didn't come together. Both Kimi Antonelli and George Russell ended up off the podium 6th and 7th respectively. Their whole strategy looked off, from swapping positions too late to allow faster car to have a tyre advantage, asking drivers to tyre manage when they are under pressure, and the team just seemed lost without Toto in the garage. As a result, the team gave up second position to Ferrari in the constructors' standings. This is a team that needs good finishes now more than ever if they're going to set themselves up for what many believe will be a good year for them in 2026. Well, one of the major talking points from the race was the late virtual safety car, and that may or may not have impacted the final results of the race. When Carlos Sainz pulled off with smoke coming out of the car in the stadium section, the virtual safety car was triggered, just as Verstappen was hunting down Leclerc for second. The virtual safety car pretty much killed the fight for position and cost an additional 3 points in the championship. Piastri also lost potential ground because of it. He was chasing for fourth, but that final interruption put paid to any chance of a last lap move on Ollie Bearman. Had Oscar passed Ollie, he would still be leading the championship by a single point. The conspiracy theorists out there would probably say that this was a deliberate act to ensure Piastri wasn't able to pass Bearman, but this is simply fantasy. What it shows is how a single marshal call or trackside event can flip the outcome of this sport. I'm sure the FIA will review the events, but to be fair, no one gained an advantage from the decision. Rather, us fans felt robbed of a more exciting end to a race that had plenty of action. Moving from the race to the paddock and what's been said behind the scenes, well, there are a few things popped up. First, there is some real concern about Piastri's slump. He has now had 5 races without a podium heading to Brazil, which isn't ideal when your teammate is now leading the Drivers' Championship. Second, McLaren have a strategic advantage with their car's tyre usage this weekend, and with Lando they exploited it. But there's chatter in the paddock about how much the team might lean into supporting the driver who's winning now versus the one who until the summer break had been the strongest. Thirdly, momentum matters. Norris arrived in Mexico calm, collected and ready. The team rallied around him, whereas Piastri, by contrast, seemed a step behind. Not the usual version we've seen this season, which leads to an interesting question. Is McLaren quietly shifting support to Norris now that he has the lead? On one hand, the car is working for both drivers. On the other hand, recent decision-making looks clean for Norris. Some may call that merit, others will whisper team favouritism. I tend to think McLaren's job is to win either way. But when one driver takes the lead, the subtle shift of resources might happen naturally. Is that sabotage? Probably not intentionally, but it is real. Yes. And Piastri must sense he's fighting 2 battles now. His rivals and the internal team dynamics. Should Piastri be surprised by this? No. This is something that has been happening in F1 teams for a while now. His manager, Mark Webber, is no stranger to team politics and favouritism. Thus, rather than transferring his trauma to his young driver, he should pass on his wisdom of how to race hard in this situation. The challenge for Oscar is for him to remain competitive while not impacting on both his and Lando's chance of success. Behind the scenes, McLaren believe Lando has earned the opportunity to win the championship after his many years in the team. And secretly, those at Woking are doing what they can to make this happen. It's not sabotage, it's how it should have been from the beginning of the season. Oscar was always supposed to play the supporting role, keeping Max busy while Lando drove off into the distance. Unfortunately, Lando struggled for consistency early on, and this puts Oscar somewhere he wasn't meant to be. With Mexico out of the way, McLaren has now restored things to how they were meant to be and will now push on to winning more silverware with Lando. If I were placing bets, I'd say McLaren will throw full weight behind Norris now because momentum is a track you ride and you don't let it slip. But if Piastri can push back with a win or two, then this storyline flips again. As an Aussie, I would love to see this, but I don't believe McLaren will allow this to happen, and I will have to wait another year in the hope that an Aussie will bring home the championship. So what comes next? The calendar takes us to São Paulo Grand Prix in Brazil in 2 weeks, followed by the busy stretch including Vegas, Qatar and Abu Dhabi. 4 races left, including 2 sprint events, meaning 150 points are still on the table. If you're a fan of drama, you're going to love this run home. Fast tracks, varying conditions, tyre management and strategies, and team dynamics. They all matter more than ever. The title could change hands several times before it even gets to the final race. Well, what a weekend of racing. Mexico provided many twists and turns both on and off the track. A dominant weekend for Norris, pressure mounting for Piastri, Bearman making waves, Mercedes stumbling a little, and the virtual safety car once again reminding us how thin the margins are. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you hit the subscribe, leave a review, share with your fellow racing obsessed friends. I'm going to keep writing the storylines right into the climax of the season together. I'll be back next time with previews, inside paddock chatter and more insights. Until then, keep your eyes on the apex and your headphones plugged in right here with the All Motorsports Podcast.